All right, today we're going to dive into a pretty unique kind of journey. This isn't about crossing borders or getting a new stamp in a passport. We're talking about a completely different kind of citizenship, one that isn't defined by a nation, but by a total internal transformation.
So just think about this for a second. What if belonging wasn't about where you were born, but about the actual condition of your inner self? This idea, well, it's at the very heart of what we're exploring today. It's a radical rethinking of what it even means to be a citizen. Okay, so to really get a grip on this new idea of citizenship, we first have to understand our starting point. Some ancient texts lay out two, well, really contrasting prototypes for humanity, and they give us a super clear picture of where we begin and where we're potentially headed. Now check this out. The contrast here is what's so fascinating. On one side, you have the first man, Adam. His name in Hebrew literally means earthy. He represents our natural from the ground state. And on the other side, you've got the second man, Christ, who represents a totally heavenly state. And that right there, that sets the stage for this whole journey we're about to unpack.
And boom, here's the destination laid out for us. This line from the Apostle Paul isn't just some nice, hopeful thought. It's presented as the entire point of the exercise. The journey is all about moving from that first image to the second, from being earthy to becoming heavenly. But how in the world does that actually happen?
Well, it turns out the path from earthy to heavenly isn't just a random stumble in the dark. It's described as a really structured three-stage journey. In fact, our source material uses the ancient feasts of Israel as a kind of prophetic map for this personal transformation.
And here's the map. First up, you have Passover. This is the exit. You're leaving the old way of life. Then comes Pentecost, which is like the training period where you learn the new way. And finally, there's Tabernacles, the arrival, the point where this new way just becomes who you are. Think of it like a personal journey from Egypt to the Promised Land.
Now get this, because it's super important. You don't have to finish the entire journey to become a citizen. In this framework, your citizenship in this new kingdom is granted right at the very beginning, at that Passover stage. It's the act of faith that gets you in the door. The rest of the journey, that's all about growing into that new identity.
So let's zoom in on what these three stages actually feel like on the inside. We can really boil this whole process down to three key ideas that describe what's happening in a person as they travel this path. Everything kicks off with faith. And this isn't just, a passive belief. It's an active decision. It's the moment you consciously choose to walk away from the old system and apply for citizenship in this new, internal one. Next up is obedience. This is the training ground, right? The Pentecost phase. This is where your inner nature, your gut instinct, learns to submit to a will that is not your own. And look, it's not always easy, and you might not always get it or agree with it, but this is the boot camp where spiritual character and maturity are forged. And this is where it all leads, agreement. This is when you graduate from training. Obedience isn't really a thing anymore because the law isn't some external rule you have to follow. It's become who you are. It's an internal desire, your natural impulse. Your will and God's will, they're finally on the same page.
This whole personal journey from obedience to agreement, it actually mirrors a much bigger shift described in these texts. It's a transition from a physical, national kingdom to a spiritual kingdom that exists inside the heart.
This cable just lays it all out so clearly, doesn't it? Under the old system, the national one, everything was based on external stuff, actions, rituals. The law was a bunch of regulations, the sign of citizenship was physical. But in the new kingdom, everything shifts inward. It's all about the heart's condition. The law becomes an internal agreement, and the sign is totally spiritual. And this really gets to the fatal flaw of that old way of doing things. An external law, see, it can control your behavior, but it can't change what you actually want deep down. It can't transform someone from the inside out. You could make a law against murder, but you couldn't make a law against hatred. That was the problem. And this right here might be the most powerful picture of the whole change. The old sign of citizenship was a physical mark, something you could have on the outside even if nothing had changed on the inside. But the new sign? It's a spiritual circumcision of the heart, an invisible internal transformation that becomes the real ID for this new citizenship. So, if citizenship is now based on what's inside a person instead of their external identity, what does that mean for who can join? Well, the implications are absolutely massive. It means that all the old barriers, all the old requirements, they're just gone, wiped away. Your family tree, your race, your gender, how much money you have, your social standing, none of it matters. The one and only qualification for citizenship in this kingdom is the condition of your heart.
And this quote just drives the point home with incredible power. It's a declaration of radical, unbelievable equality. In this new kingdom, all those divisions that we humans create, they're just erased. Everyone gets in on the same terms, through the same door, and becomes part of one single, unified family.
And so that leaves us with a pretty big question to chew on, right? We live in a world that runs on external rules, laws, regulations, social pressures. So in the middle of all that, what does it actually look like day to day to be a citizen of a kingdom where the main law isn't written in a book, but is written on your heart?